I'm going to be giving y'all three things that every person should know before they enter a dating relationship or really any relationship at all. But what I want to do to start this off is I was thinking about it when I was planning. I wanted to invite some of my closest friends to just share their experience of dating. And so without further ado, I want to invite up Alex and Dan who are getting married in October. And also, in the November, I'm a terrible friend. And Nathan Lambert, y'all give him a round of applause. Nathan is not getting married in November. He already got married last October. And his wife was going to be here, but she's not feeling well. Aww. But anyway, I just wanted to have them just share a little bit of their own experience of dating and just to pass on some wisdom. So, first up is Nathan.
So, first of all, we need a chance to say a quick prayer for my wife, Brianna, just that she feels better. That'd be awesome. I spoke with her before I came, and she actually told me what to say. But since she's not here, I might be able to twist a little bit. Anyway, bad husband. So Brianna and I had a little bit different dating experiences. Brianna, when she was going through high school, she actually never dated. And the reason wasn't because she was opposed to dating or anything, but she was kind of surrounded with a lot of friends who, through their own dating experiences, had a lot of breakups and a lot of kind of baggage and things coming from those relationships. And the kind of consistent thing that she saw in those relationships were that a lot of her friends that were dating were basically dating just to date. To have somebody kind of say, like, I'm with this person, and it wasn't really pursuing anything long term. It was just kind of, let's be together because all our friends are, or whatever the situation may be. So when the breakups came, they were all had these different kind of heart-wrenching situations, and they go to Brianna, and Brianna kind of took that as, well, I don't really want to date someone unless I really see a future with them. If I can really see myself being with this person long-term, and they're going to make me a better person, or just the thing, biggest thing being, if I can't see myself with them long-term, then I don't want to get myself in a situation where I might get hurt or hurt them. So she didn't date through high school, went to college, met me, and her life was wonderful. And that's what she told me to say. No, but she saw in me, and as we started to grow in friendship together, we were friends a long time before we started dating. We both saw in each other things that we could see made us better people and help us grow in our faith lives and personally. But we'll get back to that. My personal dating experience was a little bit different. In high school, I dated one other person. I had one girlfriend. To paint the picture for you guys, I was 5'8", she was 6'1". So it was really cute to watch us like walking through the mall, holding hands, and anyway. But the one thing that I decided when I was dating in high school is I just really want to make sure that Christ is really the center of this relationship. That way, should it not last long term, or if this wasn't the person that God essentially wanted me to be with forever, that He could just guide us and help us grow through it. So that was the case. God decided we weren't meant to be together, or I guess in His plan we weren't supposed to be together. And that mindset really made the breakup not easy, but easier because we both were on the same page. God has a better plan. Going into college, I got into a relationship, and because of some issues in my family and just some struggles in with my parents, there was a lot of heartbreak and a lot of issues within my family that made me question not only my relationship with God, but kind of trusting Him with my relationship, and also really kind of affected my personal self-esteem. So going into this relationship, I would kind of put a little bit of a border between God, and I was like, okay, God, you can like watch over this relationship and keep an eye on it, but I'm going to be the one who makes this work. I'm going to make it, great and powerful and faithful. And it was all on me, like, I'm going to make this happen. But later on, as God started kind of doing the same thing, as we in high school, like calling us apart, I didn't listen to that. I was like, no, God, like I can make this work. And it was more trying to convince myself that I was good enough, that I was he has had all of the tools that I need to like make a great relationship, and because of that, the relationship still eventually came to an end. But it was a lot harder because I wasn't as trusting in God's guidance there. So those two situations, like those two dating scenarios, when I met Brianna in college later on, the same thing that we kind of came to on the same page, discussing our dating experiences, why she didn't date, and the things that I learned from when I dated, were that the best gift that we can give to one another is the best version of ourselves. That I really need to invite God into every relationship that I have, especially when we started dating, to guide us wherever He saw it to be, and to really surrender, to say, God, if this is meant to be long-term, if we're just meant to grow with one another for a time, you need to be the center of this relationship. And because of that, we got married 4 months ago, and it's been amazing. But yeah, just deciding we need to work on ourselves, and the best gift we can give to one another is the best version of ourselves. And that was amazing, and it's really helped us grow as people, grow in our faith lives, and support one another so far through our marriage. So thanks for listening to me.
Neither Alex nor I dated anybody in high school or college, and looking back on it, it was a great decision that we didn't consciously make. But, well, it was. But looking back on it, it was that whole time period we weren't dating anybody. It was an opportunity to discover our own identities. So before I could know her and give myself fully to her, I needed to understand myself. So that 8-year period was, significant in developing that identity of myself. So I went to high school and college, didn't date anybody, came back here, and still 2 years after that I wasn't dating anybody. And then Alex moved back, and I still didn't date her. But we were all part of the same group of friends. We were all hanging out in community. And that friendship that we had in that group eventually led to a relationship after 6 or 7 months after you were back. So growing in that friendship led up to our first date, which we will now.
He didn't bring his toddler. He doesn't have a toddler, for the record. This took a turn. So when we decided that we had become friends and thought, we hung out a couple of times, just the two of us. And he actually made it in just under the radar. We had a night off from Edge. We're both on the core team with the junior high kids. And so it was like Memorial Day or something. So we had the night off, and he said, hey, let's go to dinner. So we go to dinner, and it was fun, and it wasn't an awkward dating situation. And we were in the parking lot of Old Navy, and it was so romantic. Okay, so the parking lot of the restaurant was really crowded, so we had to walk. So he didn't take me to Old Navy. So he walked me to my car, and I was getting ready. Like 2 days later, that Thursday morning, I was getting on a flight to Baltimore to go to a job interview. I had already spoken with one of the schools there and was going to interview and was pretty sure I was moving back to take a job. So it was sort of just like a free dinner for me, kind of. So that's okay. We're engaged now, so it worked out. So we're in the parking lot of Old Navy, feeling so romantic. I know I'm getting ready to get on this flight, and one of the things that I love the most about Dan, and one of the things that he teaches me regularly, is that he is one of the most intentional people that I know. And what I mean by that is he doesn't do anything just because. He does it with a purpose, and he thinks it through. And he prays about it, and he is intentional about it. And so we were standing in the parking lot, and he said, I have no idea what he said to me when he proposed. I don't remember a single word, but I remember this night. He said, I've really enjoyed getting to know you over the last couple of months, and I really would like to pursue a relationship with you. And that was a game changer. So I get in the car and I'm, oh, well, dang, what do I do now? I'm supposed to get on this flight. So the next morning, I called the principal and I canceled my interview, which I'm glad that I did now, looking back, that I'm engaged and we're getting married in a couple of months. I was a little nervous then, but that intentionality has carried into our dating relationship. We dated with a purpose, and that purpose was to pursue holiness together and eventually to pursue marriage. And that's something that we continue to practice, that's something we continue to pray about, and something that we hope will carry us through our life and through our marriage. And so we feel very blessed and thankful to God that in less than 9 months now, like 8 months and 28 days or something, but who's counting, we will be married. So that's our story.
So it's been a real big privilege to be in a group of Catholic friends that love the Lord and have a great love for each other as friends. Also to be in this group of friends, the guys have to wear Sperry's, I just noticed, because we're all matchy-matchy tonight. So good job, mission accomplished. But it's been interesting to just share all of our different experiences that we have with each other, with our significant others, and it's shaped and molded who we are as people. They shared a little bit about what they experienced in their dating experience in high school, college, or lack of experience. And I just want to share a little about my experience. What I experienced, like, basically when it started in 7th grade, I don't know if you can remember back that long, but like 7th grade when you remember like, oh gosh, I like this girl. So what I'm going to do is tell my friend to tell his friend to write her a note to give to her, but we can't make eye contact at lunch. And that was the extent of my relationships in 6th and 7th grade. But what that led to in high school was me honestly feeling like in order to understand who I was, in order to feel happy and all this other stuff, I had to have a girlfriend. There wasn't a very long gap of time, whether it be in 7th grade or 12th grade, that I didn't have somebody that I was dating or wanting to date. And what happened is, I think something that happens to all of us, or it's tempting to a lot of us at least, is that we believe, we have this idea that we believe in this myth. And this myth is something that I think that maybe to some degree you have experienced. And that myth is called the right person myth. And this is what I swore by in high school, because in my mind, I really wanted to find acceptance, I wanted to find love, I wanted to be wanted, I wanted all of these things. And so the myth that I gave into was this: if I date the right person, everything will be all right. If I date the right person, everything will be all right. And so what I believed in my experience in high school was, if I found the right girl, it started off my freshman year, I was like, oh, if I find a girl, everything will be all right. Which took a while. In my mind, I was like, okay, if I find a girl, everything will be all right. I'll be cool, I'll have a girlfriend, everything will be great, blah, 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 blah. I'm a freshman, I smell funny. I had a really hard time finding a girl for my first year in high school, because I was playing basketball, but the thing is, basketball was in the middle of the day basketball period, and at the end of practice, we did have time to shower, but I thought that was weird because it was just like a one room with a bunch of shower heads. It's like, I'm not going to do that. But don't worry, I have my trusty friend Axe, and I would spray Axe all over me, my sweaty, nasty body, and be like, I'm ready for the world, let's find a girlfriend. Guys, tip number one before we actually get into tips: don't do that ever. For the sake of anybody around you, not just females. And then, so I dated a girl towards the end of freshman year, and I was like, oh, this is good. I finally found somebody, so I started giving into this. If I date the right person, everything will be all right. But then actually I got kind of more into my faith, and I went on this retreat, and I really experienced God. And after that retreat, I was like, oh gosh, you know what? Like, this person doesn't even, I don't think even believes in God. And so I started questioning, oh, is this the right person? And after a while, we ended up breaking up. And then what did I have to do? After meeting God, after having this great experience, what I did was I said, okay, now I have to find a girl who loves Jesus. And then everything will be all right. Y'all are laughing because a lot of you just went on confirmation retreat and you're thinking the same thing, I'm sure. Awkward laugh. How do you know? So shortly after I retreat in high school, I started hanging out at church all the time, and then I found a girl that loved Jesus, and I thought, okay, if I date her, then everything will be all right. I'll have a girlfriend who respects me, who respects the Lord. We'll grow close together. It's going to be awesome. And we dated for like on and off for 3 years throughout high school, and I did learn a lot of things in that time. But what I wish I would have known, would have been told, are three things that I think all of us need to know before we enter into a dating relationship. And not just a dating relationship, but really any relationship. These are three good tips. So this is for the people who are in a relationship. These are the people who just got out of a relationship. These are the people who are single or are wanting to be in a relationship. These are for the people who are single and don't really care. This is still for you. And these are three things I wish that I knew before I started dating. And so I'm going to give just three short tips. Dating tip number one. Here we go. The second most important person you could ever get to know is yourself. Yeah. All right. The second most important person that you could ever get to know is yourself. My gosh, if I knew this when I was a freshman in high school, getting ready to start thinking about dating, and thinking, oh, maybe if a girl would like me, what I would do. I wish I would have known this, because the thing is, I think what I got caught into, and I can only speak into my own experience, was that my time started to be consumed pretty much once puberty hit, and trying to get to know some other person, like trying to get to know things about this girl, or trying to get to be closer friends with that person. And what I ended up doing was learning a lot about other people, learning a lot about the people that I dated. But what I missed out on was learning about myself. One of the things that Dan, Alex, and Nathan talked to about Dan and Alex's experience, and also Brianna's experience, is they didn't really date much in high school. And if you would have told me that about them when we were in high school, I didn't know them then, but I would say, oh man, that stinks for them. Like, oh, that sucks. But really, honestly, I in a lot of ways, I envy that, because I think what we kind of experience, and what happens sometimes is we get consumed by knowing someone other, that we totally lose track of finding who we are. We lose track of knowing ourselves. And how is this done? Well, first of all, why is this done? Why would we need to know ourselves before we get to know someone else? Well, very practically speaking, if you don't know who you are, how do you know who you're looking for? You know? Like, if you don't know anything about who you are deep inside, not just things about, well, I like basketball and I like doing these activities, or I'm good at classes, or I'm not a very good test taker, all these little facts. I'm talking about who you are as a person. If you don't understand that, how are you going to even know who you're looking for? And so how do we do that? And what God gives us is a great truth. And this is one of my most favorite scripture verses that he says. He says, I came that you might have life and have it to the full. And now why is the scripture verse up here right now? I think a lot of times we try and figure out other people, we try and figure out ourselves, and we don't put Christ in the picture. And that's just silly. The reason being is no one knows you. No one knows me. I don't even know me half as well as Jesus knows me. And not only that, but what he said in the Gospel of John, he says, I came that you might have life and have it to the full. I came that you might have life and have it to the full. Not just, I can't think you might live and just kind of go throughout this world, but have it to the full, have it to the most, have the best life possible. That is why Jesus came to this earth, so that you could experience, I could experience life to the fullest. Now, I think if we're giving into the right person myth, is if I find the right person, everything will be all right. We might like to replace that I, that Jesus, with that person. She came into my life that I might have life and have it to the full. Or he came into my life that I might have life to the full, that I might know who I am and all these things. But that's just a lie, guys. If you give into that lie, like I did so many times, you're going to come up wanting. You're going to come up lost, honestly, because you're going to come up not knowing, not just your surroundings, you're not going to know who you are. But what happens is if we actually believe what Jesus said right here, that I came, that you might have life and have it to the full, what that means is that we believe that in finding Him and trying to know Him and trying to go into a deeper relationship with Him, He shows us who we are. And we spend quality time with Him, we start to see deep down who we are as people. My experience is after, I remember my freshman year of college when I got onto that campus up in North Texas, I just felt lost. I had just broken up with my girlfriend of 3 years. I had, all my friends from high school weren't going to this school. I knew nobody. And I just sat in my dorm room and was like, what do I do? I think a big part of that was I didn't know. I was like, who am I? Really, who am I? Because my world was just changed around, and it's lost all its footing. And yes, the consistent thing there is me being there. But I was so attached to other things, whether it be my girlfriend or my group of friends or the lifestyle I was used to living. And without those, I couldn't really tell myself, I couldn't really identify who I was. And so through a lot of years of figuring that out, it took a lot of years of me asking that question, like, Lord, who are you? And the more I asked that, the more I pursued Him. He showed me life. He showed me life to the full because I was able to know who I am. And so that's the first dating tip that I want to give you. The second one, dating tip number 2. This is really important. I was about to say, especially for you girls, but for everybody. And this is something that we don't think about a lot of times. Tip number 2 is you decide your price tag. You decide your price tag. Now, what does that mean? That means if you don't decide how much you're worth, now I'm not talking about you looking at yourself and saying, well, I mean, I'm pretty good at this. I'm decently good looking. I'm smart. Like, not going through like these physical characteristics or any characteristics that you have. But if you don't know what you are worth, then you are giving anybody permission to decide what you're worth. If you don't make your own price tag, somebody else will. And if you don't, what can happen is you're giving anybody else the freedom to say, hey, I think you're worth this much. And what that can lead, it can lead not to all bad things, but also can very easily lead to use, to abuse, to being mistreated as something less than who you are. And so if you've ever let yourself do that, if you've ever been in a relationship where you've given freedom for the other person to decide what y'all do, decide how far y'all might go in a relationship or whatever, if you've decided to let them decide your price tag, tonight you need to decide this. You need to know this, that you are the one who decides your worth. And you might be thinking, well, Jonathan, you know what? There's really not that many great things about me. Like, I don't even really like myself. I'm not the best looking, I'm not the most athletic, I'm not the most popular, I'm not the most this or that or whatever. So what do you mean it would be a good idea for me to decide my worth? Because if I decided my worth, people would just walk all over me. And you know what, Jonathan? Actually, they already do. But this is what I mean when I say you decide your worth. And this comes from St. Paul in 1 Corinthians. And this is what I want you to remember for this tip number 2. You were bought with a price. We were each bought with a price that was beyond comparison. And a lot of you might just ask you right now, what is that price? You would be able to tell me, but this is what your price is. But God proves His love for us in that while we were still sinners, Christ died for us. But God proves His love for us in that while we were still sinners, Christ died for us. One of my favorite lines in the Catechism is this. It says, this is paragraph 605 for you those who read the Catechism regularly. There is not, never has been, and never will be a single human being for whom Christ did not suffer. There has never been, and never will be a single human being that Christ did not suffer for. What does that mean for you? That means for you who decides your price tag, who says, you know what, I'm not worth too much, God screams, yes you are. What God says is that you are worth it. What I love about this is, yes, this is great. He proves His love for us. I love this part. While we were still sinners. So what does that mean? God is saying, I'm proving my love no matter what you do, no matter who you think you are, no matter what you have done in the past, no matter how other people have treated you, no matter how much your parents or your friends or those that have said you're friends might say that you're not worth it. I'm saying, regardless of all of that, I'm going to love you so much that I'm going to die for you. But while we were still sinners, Christ died for us. Now, what does that say about your price tag? What that says about your price tag is that regardless of what other people might think, and to be honest, regardless of what sometimes you might think about yourself, your price tag is priceless. No matter what other people might think about you and label as your price tag, no matter what you might think about yourself sometimes, your price tag is priceless. And so what you need to decide, and what you need to ask for and beg for and pray for, and I've had to do this a lot because I've messed up a lot, and there's a lot of things that I don't like about myself. But what I have decided in my life is that I'm not going to let other people decide what I'm worth, because someone already did, and that's Jesus Christ. And He loves you, and He loves me more than anybody ever could. So much so that He says, He says to me, Jonathan, you are worth my life. So if you brought out a price tag right now and you looked at it, see how much you're worth, it would say, the death of God. That seems pretty intense, and that's because it is. Like the Catechism says, there has never been, and there never will be, and there is not a single human being that Christ did not suffer for. Because He loves you. So dating tip number 2, you decide your price tag. And if you have trouble deciding that, you need to start asking God, God, help me to see my worth in your eyes. God, help me to see how you love me. God, help me to know that I am priceless. Dating tip number 3. This is similar to the first one, but it's still very important. Your story has far more to do with who you are than who you're with. Your story has far more to do with who you are than who you are with. The only person that we can change, the only person that we have control over the direction of life is ourselves. And a lot of times we might think that being with this person or that person is going to be such a big, important part of it. Oh, if I only had this person, if I'm only in this relationship, or if the person I'm dating, if only we loved each other just this much more. We say that all the time, and we get consumed by this idea of this relationship. And I can say that from my own experience. What I was way more concerned about was, it was like I was looking at this part of my life with a magnifying glass, my dating relationship. When God was saying, like, look up, and he just kept saying, look up, Jonathan, look up, Jonathan. And I always tried to find, I was like, okay, I'm going to look at this relationship, I'm going to find my identity, I'm going to find out everything about me, my purpose, all this other stuff, by looking at this. And God kept encouraging me throughout high school, through the beginning of college, Jonathan, look up, look up, look up. But you might have noticed, if you get too consumed in relationships, you might have noticed there might be people that are your friends that have maybe backed away a little bit. And this is a really important thing that I remember having to tell my brother when we were in high school, was that relationships shouldn't look inward, but they're supposed to point outward. They're supposed to share love. And a lot of times, what happens when we see our more importance in who we're with, then we forget to look outwards to all the things that God has for each one of us. So if you're that person or have been, I ask you to challenge you to look at your relationships that you're in and to say, how is this a good part of my life, and how am I recognizing it as just a part? How am I experiencing life in even more ways than just that dating relationship? What's my relationship with Christ like? What's my relationship with my friends like? What's my relationship with my family like? Are those good too? And then going back to that first tip, do I know who I am? Because the tip number 3, what we said, is that it is far more important to know who we are than who we're with. And see, what does this mean? And just kind of a summary, those 3 points that we're talking about is, the first one, know yourself. So what does that mean again? If you are so concerned with knowing other people, and you don't know yourself, how are you going to know what you're looking for? And that Christ can show you what your identity is. Christ can show you because he came that you experience life and life to the full. Second one, know your worth. Know your worth. You decide your price tag. And that price tag, you were bought at a price, as St. Paul says. And that God loved us so much that while we were still sinners, Christ died for us. And thirdly, know whose you are. Sometimes we get consumed in our lives, and we try and schedule and plan and lay out our lives, that we forget whose we are. And we are God's. We are children of God by virtue of your baptism. And so what that means for us is that God sees the beginning, he sees the end, he sees everything in between, and he says, I have such great plans for you. And when we start to trust him more, what's going to happen is we're actually going to experience a much fuller life, as it said back in John. Because we're going to give our lives over to Christ in a way that he decides what we experience. He decides our journey. And we trust him and follow him, we find that happiness, we find that identity. And so what I pray for each one of y'all, no matter if you're in a relationship or not, or has friends that are, I pray that you might take these three tips to know yourself, know your worth, and know whose you are to heart. You know, that might mean that relationships have to change a little bit. Or maybe you need to wait a little bit and figure out these things before you get into a relationship. And just going back to what I said before, you know, if I had heard these things and took them to heart when I was a freshman in high school, about to start dating, and really taken these and lived these out, I would have been much stronger in knowing who I am, knowing my worth, and finding my identity and purpose and the leader in my journey in Christ. And so what I would like to do is pray for each one of us that we might experience that. In the name of the Father, the Son, and the Holy Spirit.